Hey guys, thank you for joining me for another episode of Radical Obedience. Today we are going to be talking about how to take heed to warnings that God is giving us. We are going to be talking about Solomon still and warnings that God gave him. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and cannot wait to chat with you all. Peace be with you.
So today we are going to be talking about disobedience. We are going to be talking about Solomon, and then the first we're going to be in First Kings today. In the last message that I brought to you guys, we talked about David and how after him and Bathsheba lost their first child, Bathsheba gave birth to Solomon, and Solomon is great. He grew to be a great man of God. He was the wisest, one of the wisest kings beside Jesus in the Bible. Okay, he wrote the book of Proverbs. He is very smart, very knowledgeable. I'm gonna paraphrase a little bit of his story because we're gonna be talking about the fall of Solomon today. But so Solomon, Solomon became king after David died. David decreed that Solomon would become king. Solomon becomes king, and he burns incense for Jesus. He makes a sacrifice, and after he makes this sacrifice, God comes to him and asks him, what is it that you want? And you can find this in First King. This is in First Kings chapter. This is in First Kings chapter 3. And this is, let me see here. And this is starting at verse 5. Um, okay. Now, I want you guys to read the whole chapter, the whole book of First Kings, so you can really, get some background on Solomon and everything. But since we're going to be talking about, his son, talking about his fall, I'm not going to dive too deep in there. But if you want to hear about, the prayer that Solomon prayed, so God appeared to Solomon in a dream, and he asked him, what is it that you would want? And Solomon, asked God for wisdom. He asked God, it states here, he asked God for an understanding heart to judge this people so that he can discern good between good and bad. And he asked God for his wisdom and how to and understanding to discern judgment. Okay, so God was very pleased with this prayer that Solomon prayed, and he granted Solomon. Not only did he grant him wisdom and a discerning heart, but he also granted Solomon wealth. And Solomon that he asked for this, so God said to him, "Since you have asked for this and not long life or wealth for yourself, or nor have asked for the death of your enemies, but for discerning and administering justice, I will do what you have asked. I will give you a wise and discerning heart, so that there will never be anyone like you, so that there will never have been anyone like you, nor will there ever be. Moreover, I will give you what you have not asked for." Excuse me, both wealth and honor, so that in your lifetime you will have no equal amongst kings. And if you walk in obedience to me and keep my decrees and commandments as David your father did, you will have a long life. Okay, so that is where, that's where God first blessed Solomon. So then we see, you know, the it goes the book goes on, and Solomon builds a temple for God, for the Israelites to worship God, because they didn't have a temple to worship God. They would just go up on they would go to different, places or tabernacles to worship, but they never had a temple to worship God in. So um, you know, Solomon took it upon himself to build a temple for the kingdom to worship. And then he builds his own palace. He goes on, and God like really just starts to bless and pour out into Solomon. People come from different nations to seek the wisdom that Solomon has, And it just becomes like this. Solomon just becomes very wealthy, and God just really just pours out and blesses him. Then we get towards chapter 9. Solomon gets done building this temple. Um, and after he gets done building the temple, he prayed to God, asked God to bless this temple. And God appeared to him again in a dream and said, I have heard your plea that you have said before me, basically stating that he will bless this temple. He said that he would establish his throne over Israel forever, as he promised David, his father, that he shall never fail to have a successor on the throne of Israel. But then God gives warning to Solomon, and he says, "But if you or your descendants turn away from me and do not observe the commandments and decrees I have given you, and go off to serve other gods and worship them, I will cut Israel off from the land I have given them, and I would reject this temple I have consecrated for my name. Israel will become a byword and an object of ridicule amongst people. This temple will become a heap of rubble. All who pass by will be appalled and scoff and say, 'Why has the Lord done such a thing to this land and to this temple?' People will answer, 'Because they have forsaken the Lord their God, and they have brought their ancestors out of Egypt, and have embraced other gods, worshiping and serving them. And that is why God has brought all of this disaster on him.'" So this is the first warning. Excuse me. This is the first warning that God gives Solomon. Hey, warning. And I believe in our lives, God gives us warning. Warning always comes before destruction, because God is a good Father. He does not want for us to fail. That is why he instructs us. That is why God gives us instruction, so that we may take heed to his instruction, and so that it doesn't lead to destruction. Okay? So I want you guys to just take a moment right now before we get to Solomon's fall. And if you have a journal, I want you to jot down, what are some things that you feel like God has been maybe pricking your heart and telling you to do, and you're having a hard time to do them. Write it down. And I want you to write down those things that you feel like, God is asking me to do this, but this seems impossible. So you may be lacking faith in. God is asking me to do this, but I'm nervous. I've never done this before. There's some fear there. God is asking me to do this, and I have absolutely no idea how. Or God is asking me to do this, and I just don't want to. Okay? Because that's a thing too. It is easy to get caught up in the I just don't want to. I want to live my life, because we as humans sometimes can think that our lives is our own. But let me tell you this, once you give your life over to God, it is no longer your own. You crown him as king of your life, and you give him lordship to do whatever he would want to do with you. Right? So, when you do that, there are going to be some things that God requires of you that that your flesh may reject, and that you may not want to do. But let me tell you, you guys, it is so rewarding, and know that God is a good God. Know that he is a good Father. He's a good Abba, and he only wants what's best for you. Okay?
Hey guys, thank you for watching this episode of Radical Obedience. Join me for part 3, where we get into Solomon's fall. Stay tuned, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Peace be with you.